show.
Welcome to episode 40 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. If you're a new listener and you enjoy the show, we would really appreciate it if you give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you enjoy the content, it would be a big time help if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. All right, everybody. As of Sunday, November 7th, 2021, the Toronto Maple Leafs are the hottest team in the NHL. They have won 5 games in a row. At one point, not too long ago, it seemed like everything was going to come crashing down and the 18-wheeler was going to roll down the mountain, just like Leafs Nation remembers from the past. But they have rolled off 5 consecutive victories. The offense has picked it up, and people in Leafs Nation are smiling once again. So we are going to get into the week that was and give you our thoughts and opinions on everything that went down with this team, including some talk about some of the other Canadian teams in the NHL. So I promise you are not going to want to miss this episode. But before we get into all that, it is time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Anthony Bruno, as always, happy to be here. The sun is shining, Anthony, both literally and figuratively, because it's a beautiful day here in Ottawa, Ontario. And the Toronto Maple Leafs are on a 5-game winning streak. Episode number 40. Shout out to Garrett Sparks, who was the first goalie in Leafs history to post a shutout in his first game with the team. He also won a Calder Cup with the Leafs, an AHL Best Goalie Award, an AHL Best Goals Against Average Award. So shout out to Garrett Sparks, wherever he is. Who's he with now? The Knights organization, I think.
No idea where Garrett Sparks is right now. He's
been kind of like an AHL journeyman. But little piece of trivia. I like looking up these numbers. A little piece of trivia about the Toronto Maple Leafs and the number 40. The first ever Maple Leafs player to wear number 40 was, get ready for it, Ty Domi.
What?
When the Leafs first drafted Domi, he played 2 games with them before he went to the Rangers, Winnipeg, and then came back to Toronto. And for those 2 games, he wore number 40.
I had no idea.
I had no idea. Like, it caught me off guard. I'm like, Domi didn't wear 40. And then like, oh yeah, I didn't know he got into 2 games. I didn't know that part. And he wore number 40. So something to learn
about. Kind of like Nylander. I think he's already gone through 3 numbers as a Leaf. Because like when he first got called up, he was like number 39,
39,
and then 29, and now he's 88.
Yeah. Speaking of jerseys, let us not forget, Gluttons For Punishment Nation, we are giving away a Mitch Marner Adidas home Toronto Maple Leafs authentic jersey to celebrate Mitch Marner, because since we brought him up and since that goalie scored, he has been absolute gangbusters. He must have heard us. He must listen to the podcast with that type of fire. Oh man, what a player Mitch Marner is. So if you'd like a chance at this beautiful Mitch Marner jersey, you must like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below with your Instagram handle, where you're from, and who are the most ideal line mates for Mitch Marner.
Love it, Lepore. And once again, if you've been listening to the show, you probably know that we have already given away an authentic Auston Matthews jersey to one lucky GFP supporter. So this is our second jersey giveaway, and it is by no means our last jersey giveaway. So please enter this contest. Like Lepore said, we're giving away this beautiful, authentic Marner jersey. You have to like the video, you have to subscribe to the channel, and then in the comments section down below, leave your Instagram handle, tell us where you're from, and let us know who Mitch Marner's 2 ideal line mates are and why. So we are going to be giving away this jersey probably within the next couple of weeks. So get those entries in. We can't wait to put another smile on someone's face from GFP Nation. All right. Let's get into the week that was now, Lepore.
Can't wait.
It was a fantastic week. The Leafs went 3-0, and it was an interesting week because people didn't really know where this team stood because they had beaten Chicago and Detroit. But, you're thinking Chicago and Detroit, they're probably two teams that have no chance of making the playoffs. It's not really impressive. Let's see.
We didn't
what
look good in those games either, Bruno.
Exactly, right? They still had it, even though the Leafs had won those games, they didn't look dominant by any means. Like, obviously people were happy they won the games, but they did not look nearly as good as they looked this past week. And that's why people wanted to see, like, can this team beat Vegas? Can they beat Tampa Bay or the Boston Bruins? How would they look against these teams? Three teams that have been very successful over the last few seasons and every year considered, playoff contenders and even Stanley Cup contenders. Maybe not this season when you look at the Vegas Golden Knights and the injuries they've been dealing with, but those are three really solid teams. And just to briefly go through the week that was, so Tuesday night at home, I thought this was the Leafs' most dominant performance of the season, beating
100%.
the Vegas Golden Knights 4-0. And you can disagree with me if you think some of these other games were more dominant, specifically the Saturday night game against Boston. But I think the Leafs were at their absolute best in this Vegas game. Now, saying all that, Vegas was without Mark Stone, Max Pacioretty, William Karlsson, and Alex
Jack
Tuck.
Eichel.
Yeah, exactly. And Jack Eichel, Alex Tuck, who's now been traded to Buffalo, a part of the Eichel deal. Yeah. But the Leafs were dominant in this game. Justin Hall was scratched for the second straight game, and he has now been scratched 4 straight games. Timothy Liljegren has looked really good in his place, so that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. But Jack Campbell made 26 saves for his first shutout of the season, and the core four, they've been on fire. Marner scored one of the goals of the season in this game, Lepore. Like, it was just disgusting. That, like, spinorama in front of the net, the backhand on Robin Lehner. Matthews had a couple goals in this game. Nylander, a couple of points. So they started off the week with a 4-0 win. And then on Thursday, they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 2-1 in overtime. Wasn't a great start to the game, but obviously John Tavares was able to tie it with 42 seconds left in regulation before William Nylander sniped home the overtime winner. And then the Leafs closed out the week Saturday night at home against the Boston Bruins with a 5-2 victory. Jack Campbell, 42 saves in the win. Marner had 4 points. Matthews, Tavares, and Nylander, they have all been on fire. So the Leafs, 5 straight wins, Lepore. So let's throw it over to you now, and let's rewind a little bit back to this Vegas game.
Sure.
Talk us through that game and give us your take.
Well, this game started a little differently for the Maple Leafs because they started well. To the shock of all of us, the Leafs had a great start. First shift of the game, Willie got a breakaway, and he was stopped by Lehner. Lehner was amazing in this game. Like, this game probably should have been a blowout. Like, Lehner played unbelievable. And then it was Marner with that goal you mentioned. What a goal. Maybe the goal of the year, or at least we thought it may be the goal of the year until we saw what McDavid did the other night.
Oh, that was disgusting.
Ridiculous. But either way, we enjoyed it at the time. Very dominant first period for the Leafs. They outshot Vegas 13-4. And again, Lehner, just unbelievable. Early in the second, power play for the Leafs, and William Nylander slides the puck over to Matthews, and Matthews sniped it. And for people who play hockey, they know what Matthews did and how difficult it is in the way that he's a left shot, getting the puck on the left and accepting it and releasing it in one motion. What just such like a typical Matthews goal. And like, I don't want to say we take these goals for granted now because he scores so many of them, but like, that's really hard to do. And like, I just love that stuff. Little after that, Lehner robbed Bunting in close after a 3-on-1. And then Matthews scored again late in the period to make it 3-0. Early in the third, it was Willie. Willie got his goal this time. He took a pass from Bunting, streaked down the right, beat Lehner on the blocker side with a nice shot to the far side of the net. And Lehner made a crazy save on JT. A little later, as you mentioned, the shots finished 33-26 in favor of the Leafs. Money Puck had the Leafs winning this game. You mentioned earlier that it very well could have been their best performance of the season, or at this point anyway. I don't think it was even a real debate as to whether or not it was their best performance of the season. But Money Puck had the Leafs winning this game 82% of the time based on the underlying numbers. And at one point, I think it was like midway through the third, maybe a little early in the third, the number was like in the 90s. It was like 91, 92%. And in hockey, you never see that. Like a 65-35, even a 60-40 is a pretty dominant performance. So for a team with Money Puck's algorithm to win that game based on the underlying numbers by 80-90% of the time, that's really, really rare. And just like an acknowledgement to how good of a performance it was by the Leafs.
Yeah, the Leafs were dominant. And even just, based on the eye test. And again, me and Lepore, we love our analytics and the underlying numbers and all the stats, but they just looked really fast. They were playing aggressive. They were constantly putting pressure on the Knights. They were basically living on the Golden Knights side of the ice the entire game. And like I mentioned earlier, like Vegas was without a bunch of their star players. And Vegas has been struggling because of that this season. No Stone, no Pacioretty. I mean, it's tough when you don't have your top players. It doesn't really matter how you play. You can follow your coach's system and you can try to play as hard as you want. But if you don't have the ability to sustain pressure offensively, it's going to be hard when you have to rely on your goalie and you're trying to win games, 2-1, 3-2. So Vegas is, they've had a rough go early on, a team that everyone thought was going to just run away with the Pacific Division.
Yeah.
But, despite all that, the Leafs, they look dominant. It looked like they came out and they wanted to make a statement.
Yeah.
Because, again, like I mentioned, you go back to the Chicago and the Detroit game, people were like, okay, they won, but I'm still not convinced. I still want to see more from this team. And I think that was a huge statement game that they came out and did everything the Leafs are known for. Controlled possession, controlled the shot share, were extremely aggressive in the offensive zone, D-men jumping into the play, all four lines contributing offensively, generating opportunities. So I thought it was a great performance across the board. Even the coaching staff I thought was excellent in this game. So that it was a great, great thing to see. And I think that was their most dominant performance just going through the 12 games that they've played so far this season.
Yeah. You mentioned it's been a rough start for the Knights. In that division, the way things are going with Edmonton and Calgary getting off to hot starts and with the injuries the Knights have, if you're them, are you worried?
Yes.
You are. Okay.
I'm worried because at this point, and we'll get into this later in the podcast talking about Edmonton and Calgary, but I think it's kind of safe to say that those two are locks to make the playoffs.
Yeah, based on their start. Yeah.
In that division, you would think.
Yeah.
And then after that, I mean, you're looking at some teams that just aren't very good. So you would think that Vegas still probably has, a track to finish third in this division. I want to say they're going to comfortably finish third, but when you're battling with San Jose and Anaheim and Los Angeles and Vancouver, a team that looks just completely lost at the moment, you would think that when the Knights do get healthy, they'll probably be able to get back into this playoff race. But I don't think it's going to be as simple as maybe some people think, especially with some of these injuries being more long-term injuries. Mm-hmm. So I think Vegas is in for a little bit of a tough situation moving forward.
It's one of those cases where the gap might be pretty big for those wild card spots, because you mentioned how the division's not very strong. So if you fall out of the 3 spot and you end up in the 4 spot, and now you're battling for a wild card, those teams in the other division are going to be a lot stronger than the teams in your division. So could be a slippery slope for them. But yeah, it's like, it just hasn't been the Knights so far. Like when you watch them, they just don't seem like the same club. And even from, their perspective, again, the way Calgary and Edmonton are playing, say they do come third. Okay, you get, say Calgary in the first round. Then if you get past, then you get Edmonton in the second round. Like, that's not fun, man. And again, these playoff series are pretty well all coin flips as it is. So when you have an uphill battle on the road, it's not good, man.
It's a situation the Leafs were in those 2 years they played Boston, right? Yeah. They finish as the 3 seed. they're on the road in the first round playing Boston as the 2 seed. And it's just tough because then you get through Boston and then you got Tampa in the next round. So there was, a 2-3 year stretch that the Atlantic Division just kept finishing basically in that same order or close to that same order. And Vegas could very well be in that exact same situation come playoff time.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to track them because we're just not used to this from Vegas, and like literally not used to this because since day one they were good. We've never seen a bad Knights team. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see how that division unfolds.
For sure. Is there anything else from this game that you want to talk about, Lepore, or shall we move on to the next?
No, let's move on. I mean, it wasn't that dramatic. As we mentioned, it was just such a dominant performance by our buds. So no controversy. That's how we like it.
Time for a quick break for a word about MyBookie. The fastest way to place your bets and get paid at MyBookie is with crypto. Nobody knows when your funds will double, but what we do know is when you bet with crypto at MyBookie, you double your first deposit when you use our promo code GFP. At MyBookie, you could choose from several different crypto options, including Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ripple. And not only will you double your first deposit, but you'll instantly be entered into their crypto reward program. MyBookie is the only sportsbook offering a crypto rewards program, plus bonuses on every crypto deposit you make and free entries into their amazing contests for all crypto players. Withdrawing crypto is easy, free, and it's the fastest way to get paid, so you can collect all your winnings with ease. Modern sports betting needs modern currency, and that's why we take our action to MyBookie. Remember to use our promo code GFP when you make your first deposit with MyBookie, so you can redeem your double deposit bonus and start winning with crypto today. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. This holiday season, we're giving thanks to our friends at MANSCAPED. Get your hands on the Performance Package 4.0 from the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with 20% off and free shipping using the code GFP20 at manscaped.com. The Manscaped Performance Package 4.0 includes the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance Boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold everything. Lepore, these products are the real deal.
Yeah, man, this thing comes in an amazing box, and Christmas is coming, everyone. So to get a package like that would be an unbelievable gift for your loved one or anyone for that matter. Get it for your dad if you want. But unbelievable products like Bruno said, and the way it comes, the way it's delivered is A+. Anyone who opens that gift would be super excited.
Like you said, Lepore, it is the perfect gift for the holiday season right now. Give it to the man in your family who needs it most. And you know what? Manscaped has also been busy launching its refined body wash and 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. Both feature the Manscaped signature scent and will help unlock your confidence this year.
So you know what, guys? Manscaped takes it very seriously on making your body look good with grooming. And now they're kicking it up a notch. You're going to smell good too. So it is a two-headed monster now. You're going to look good and you are going to smell good. And trust me, smell is a powerful thing, everyone. Very powerful thing. And let me tell you that these Manscaped products, the 2-in-1, as well as the body wash, smell amazing.
You said it, Lepore. So get your 20% off and free shipping with the code GFP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code GFP20 at manscaped.com. All right, moving on now to the second game of the week for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
What a game.
Continuing their homestand against the Tampa Bay Lightning, the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. And, you know, kind of like Vegas, not as many injuries, but a massive injury. Nikita Kucherov has been out of the lineup for Tampa Bay. So that team, you know, isn't going to look like the Tampa Bay that we all know. And obviously in the offseason, they lost their entire third line. Barclay Goodrow, Blake Coleman, Yanni Gourde, those guys are all gone. But this Tampa Bay Lightning team, it almost doesn't really matter who's on the roster. John Cooper always has them ready to play. They still have a ton of talent on the roster. And they got out to a pretty good start. I thought they were the better team in the first period. I was even listening to Sheldon Keefe's comments after this game. and he just said, we looked awful in the first period. He actually said it may have been the worst the Leafs have looked in a first period all season. That's what Sheldon Keefe said after this Lightning game.
Yeah, I know you're a geek for the post game scrums. Maybe I got to start watching those more often. But no,
they're entertaining, man. There's some sound bites, especially from Sheldon Keefe. I love listening to his comments post game. Yeah. But yeah, because he tells it like it is a lot of the time, and he said it was one of the worst first periods the Leafs have played all season. But they were able to find a way to win. John Tavares, just when it looked like, it was another situation where Andrei Vasilevskiy was just gonna. And it's funny because you know how there's this running joke out there that the Leafs make every goalie look like the Vezina Trophy winner. Andrei Vasilevskiy is like the best goalie in the NHL. So you expect him to play that way. It doesn't matter if he's playing the Leafs. He's just always dominant, and he was awesome in this game. But, like I mentioned earlier in the show, John Tavares was able to tie the game at 1 with 42 seconds left in regulation before William Nylander scored the overtime winner on the power play. So Lepore, give me your take on this game as the Leafs were able to battle back through adversity and win the game in overtime.
Yeah, this was a hell of a game. I mentioned during last week's show that I went full fanboy when Nylander scored the winning goal against Chicago, and I'm sure some Leafs fans did some jumping up and down at this one. Early on, there was a lot of chances. Like there was a great start to this game. Vasilevskiy made a big save through a screenshot, and then Tampa Bay hit a post. I think they maybe hit 2 posts. But yeah, just an exciting start. You knew 2 teams that were going to get into a track meet. Even if it wasn't on the scoreboard, there was going to be a lot of chances. Maroon scored the goal. Everyone loves Maroon, even when he scores against your team. Scored the goal for the Lightning. It was a pass from what could have been a Toronto Maple Leaf, break my heart, Corey Perry.
That's your guy, Corey Perry.
Oh, man. That my dream of Corey Perry playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And it was like shades of like I said, it was a transition goal. Muzzin made the mistake. He got caught behind the net, the offensive net, or at least he got caught low offensively. And you have Perry coming back the other way and setting up a goal. And it was just flashbacks to the Montreal Canadiens series.
It totally was.
Of the Leafs having the puck in deep, and then the team firing back their other way. Someone makes a mistake, as Muzzin
turning
did on
it
this
over,
one,
getting
and
caught.
they capitalize. Yeah, it's not good. Just before the period ended, Vasilevskiy, you mentioned, hot goalies. He robbed Bunting in close. The puck took a weird bounce off the boards, went right in front of Bunting, but he wasn't able to hammer it in. So the Leafs go into the second period, down a goal, down 1-0. Campbell and Vasilevskiy continue to play really well. Simmons, Wayne Train, man, he's looked good. He's got his scoring chances. It just won't go in for him. And would you believe it? This one came from a pass from Nick Ritchie. I was shocked.
You know what, Lepore? He's picking it up just a little bit. He's looked a little bit better, but
which means we're just
Wayne
noticing
Simmons.
him here and there.
Yeah, I mean, Ritchie is still, not even close to the player we thought we were going to get. But you mentioned Wayne Simmons, man. I've been, Mr. Anti-Wayne Simmons the last couple of years, but I will be the first to admit he has looked really solid this year. Yeah, I think he's moving well. He's been awesome on that fourth line with Jason Spezza and obviously Nick Ritchie. So I'm happy that the Wayne train has rediscovered his game a little bit.
Absolutely. But let's not take away from our boy, Jack Campbell, with too much talk about Vasilevskiy. Campbell, he made a save on Stamkos and another save on point. And it's one of those things I talked about this in last week's show. These were closer to the end of the second period. One of those goes in, and now you're down 2-0 going into the third instead of 1. So Campbell, the man so far in the game for us, Leafs down by 1 going into the third. And then early in the third, Campbell stopped point on a breakaway. And then Matthew Joseph got the rebound, and Campbell made another save to save the Leafs again, still down by 1. He then stopped Stamkos, who had a clean look. And then again, Cirelli after a rebound. Just unreal performance from Jack Campbell. And hockey gods, man, like just watching this game of him keeping us in, like you got that feeling of like, we're going to get one, like we're going to get that ugly one or get into a game that we maybe don't deserve to win. And it was Stamkos again in close who got robbed. I'm going over my notes here. It's all like Campbell save, Campbell rob, but Stamkos just couldn't put one past Jack in this game. And then 40 seconds left. Johnny Toronto. What a play. What a goal. The puck was caught by John when Tampa Bay tried to flip it out. He got it to Matthews. Matthews got it to Marner. Marner put it in front to John Tavares to tie the game at 1. And as I mentioned, I'm sure a lot of Leafs fans went full on fist pump for that. And then in overtime, some back and forth as it always is, 2 highly skilled teams. So it's fun. Marner had a great chance coming in off the wing. The right side, he rattled it off the post. And then the Leafs got a power play after Tavares was sprung on a breakaway and he was hooked. And it was Willie who smashed home the winning goal off a great pass from Matthews. And the Leafs escape with a 2-1 win with Jack Campbell being the man. What a performance from him. What's funny is, and I don't question money puck too often, but the Lightning seemed to me like they got a lot of high danger scoring chances. Like I kept reiterating how well Campbell played. The shots were 34-25 in favor of the Leafs, but even like money puck had the Leafs at 61% of the time winning this game.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, like, am I just, I don't know. I'm more anxious when people are shooting on Toronto. So I'm noticing them more, but again, it's not too often you see it and you're like, I don't know. That's not how I saw it, but I mean, math is math, and they had the Leafs at 61%. So, I mean, make of that what you want.
I'm looking at natural stat trick right now, Lepore. The Lightning at 5-on-5 had 12 high danger scoring chances to 9 for the Leafs. So they did have more according to natural stat trick.
Okay. Oh. And that's 5-on-5 though.
That's a 5-on-5.
Yeah. I think money puck does include all situations, or you can change it to 5-on-5 or power play, whatever you want. But they won. Keep
That's
it rolling.
All that matters.
Yeah, they won. So good. And again, this was a good game. Like these 2 games, like Vegas and the game against the Lightning. Not to sound go all cornball, but like these games were good for the fans. Like the Leafs got out to a terrible start. There was a lot of negativity. And then the Leafs come out this week. And like you mentioned, the injuries to Vegas and Kucherov being out for the Lightning. But these are still 2, good teams that are acknowledged as strong teams in the National Hockey League. And for the Leafs at home to get a dominant win and then a dramatic win where they showed a lot of heart and character was great. Like Leafs fans, like we put up with a lot of shit. It's very stressful, like bleeding blue. But at least after these 2 games, like we were able to walk with a little bit of a strut.
Yeah, I think this was huge for Leafs Nation because the start of the season, it was rough.
Yeah.
And I know that we were pretty hard on the Leafs and we were still in the camp that, hey, everyone, take a deep breath. Things are going to turn around. The Leafs are still generating a ton of shots and scoring chances. Like they're not actually scoring goals, but you would think just based on the numbers and based on the history of all the elite players on this team that the puck is going to start going into the net. And that's what we've seen so far. And then, even how, you look at the Lightning Leafs game, it's usually reversed where the Leafs are getting all those chances and the opposing goalie is playing out of his mind. It takes me back to that Rangers game a couple of weeks ago where Igor Shesterkin made 40 saves.
I forgot about that one, Bruno. Why'd you have to do that?
It was just an outrageous goaltending performance. And usually the Leafs are on the wrong side of that, at least in recent memory. So it was nice to see them battle through adversity and find a way to win, even if it took John Tavares scoring with 42 seconds left in regulation and then Nylander sniping one home on the power play. Just a quote to bring your way, Lepore. So Lightning coach John Cooper after this game.
Again with the press conferences, Bruno.
Oh, I love my post-game pressers.
True journalism geek.
So John Cooper after the game said, quote, "The frustrating part is I didn't feel like the Leafs beat us. I feel like we beat ourselves."
Ooh.
So he was pissed off.
When you have a 1-goal lead with a minute to go, you're going to feel rattled.
I think it was more a case of, and Lepore, you talked about this, Jack Campbell was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like he made you could say he made 5 or 6, 10 bell saves. Like
man.
Some of the stops that he made on Point and Stamkos, grade A scoring chances for the Lightning. And that's what you need sometimes. And especially for the Leafs, who early in the season, and now I know they've picked it up offensively, but they were not scoring goals. So you need Jack Campbell to put you need him to put the team on his back, maybe for a few games, for this team to finally find its footing offensively. And now we've seen that. But it was refreshing to see them grind out a victory like this. So again, they get their 4th win in a row, their 2nd win of the week over a quality opponent. Just positives across the board, in my opinion. And even though I did agree with Sheldon Keefe, I didn't think they looked good in the first period. I thought the Lightning were the more dangerous team and they were controlling the play. But the Leafs, I thought, bounced back very nicely in the 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah, awesome. Again, like reasons to smile, right? And like, let's face it again, we got to breathe out a bit. You mentioned how the underlying numbers early in the season were heavily in Toronto's favor, but they weren't getting the results. Their shooting percentage was an absolute joke. The big people weren't scoring. And even the biggest advanced stat geek in the world, or metrics geek, if the team is losing, there's always that little thing of you of like, oh, when is this going to even out? Like, when are the numbers going to like come to reality? But they have, and it was that like breath of fresh air that like, okay, like this team is the team we know and what we expect. And again, it hits you hardest when you see it in results. And this week, the Leafs were able to see it in results. So
yeah, a ton of positives. I guess there's nothing else from this game, Lepore.
No, a lot to talk about in the next game, though.
Let's move on now to the 3rd and final game of the week for the Leafs at home against the Boston Bruins. Another opponent that they hadn't played in a very long time. I think I saw on Twitter that it had been 722 days since the Leafs had played the Boston Bruins. I could be wrong.
That's crazy.
But I think it checks out.
Yeah, so, sure. Why not?
And again, we talked about this on a couple previous shows. It's great to finally just see them play these other teams.
Yeah, see other jerseys on the ice. Yeah.
I just got so sick and tired of watching the Leafs play Canadian teams. It was just, I was just so done with it. So I'm glad things are finally back to normal now. But another great performance from the Leafs, a 5-2 victory, their 5th straight win. They are now the hottest team in the National Hockey League, winning 5 games in a row. And I know there's some other teams with awesome records like Florida, who hasn't lost in regulation. Carolina's been awesome. Same with Edmonton and Calgary. But right now, 5 wins in a row has the Leafs as technically the hottest team in the National Hockey League. So just to go over some notes from this game, Justin Hall, like I mentioned earlier, scratched for a 4th straight game. I don't blame Sheldon Keefe at this point because he's rolling with the hot hand. They're winning games. Liljegren and Sandin have looked good on that 3rd pair.
Very good. So
Justin Hall scratched for a 4th straight game. Jack Campbell, once again, was unbelievable in this game. 42 saves. He is now 6-2-1 with a 188 goals against average and a 936 save percentage.
Whew. Like it.
Those numbers are just awesome. And once again, Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander, they've been on fire. They have now scored Toronto's last 13 goals.
Is it 13? I thought I saw 11. It's 13.
It's 13 straight. I went through the game logs just to double check. I think it spans back, I want to say 4 games where they've now scored Toronto's last 13 goals. And just like I got to throw in a post-game quote here. This one's from Auston Matthews, Lepore, who said, "The highs can get real high here and the lows can get real low. Sometimes you just got to take a step back and take a breath." Amen, Auston Matthews.
Exactly.
Amen. Because as much as we like to rip on Marner because he seems like things just get to him a little bit more. Maybe he overthinks when things aren't going well and he just kind of gets down on himself, puts too much pressure on himself. Matthews is that guy who's just even keel all the time.
Yeah. You
don't know if he's in a slump. You don't know if he's scored in 6 straight games. So I love that quote from Auston Matthews. And just a couple other stats, Lepore. The core 4, Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander, have combined for 32 points during this 5-game winning streak.
That's what we need.
And did you know during the 4-game losing streak before this, the core 4 points in 4 games and we're a minus 14.
Not shocking.
When their best players are their best players, this is what happens, Lepore.
So based on what we've seen from the last 5 games and the numbers those 4 have put up, and you mentioned that they've scored the last 13 goals for the Leafs, there's no need for anyone to ever bring up the discussion of paying those 4 what they're paid ever again, right?
Oh, Lepore. All it's going to take is one more game where they're all ghosts on the ice, and someone on Twitter is going to bring it up again.
No, there's always someone.
it never goes away.
No,
they literally have to do this all season, or there's going to be people that are questioning the contracts that all 4 of those guys.
Yeah, well, it's what we deal with, right? But it was another good game, like as a neutral. And Allmark's been like a decent pickup for the Bruins. Like there was all the chatter of him last year, like putting up the numbers he put up with the Sabres, like being on the Sabres. So I remember he was kind of expected to be like a big deadline acquisition, and then he wasn't picked up, and everyone kind of questioned it. So they were like, "Huh, weird." But anyways, he's with the Bruins now, and he's looked pretty good for them so far in relief of Tuukka Rask. Early on, he made a diving save, like freaking, like he went full like soccer mode, like diving save to rob Riley after a pass from Marner. But unfortunately, the Bruins were able to capitalize on a power play, and it was GTA boy Taylor Hall, shocking, tipping home a shot from Patrice Bergeron, and the Bruins go up 1-0. Now, the Leafs were able to tie it. I kind of want to talk about this a bit. So the Leafs were able to tie it on what was a goal given to Tavares after like a Marner shot. So it was Riley passed it over to Marner. It was a scoring chance, and Tavares was battling Bergeron in front of the net, and the net was knocked off. And it was Bergeron who knocked the net off. Now, the goal was called a goal on the ice right away because a lot of people, like with the rule, like it's kind of fuzzy. So if the net comes off, it's not a straight whistle. If the puck goes in with the net off, it can still be a goal based on who knocked it off and what the situation was. This one, though, like based on the rules, I mean, they took forever to look at it. So, I mean, it must be a goal by the rule book. But do you think that should be a goal? So I found with that one, like the net it sounded as if the net came off kind of as the puck was going towards the net, or like as the player was shooting it. I feel like it was off for a while, kind of before it went in. And then what I don't like about that is, well, then where's the gray area of like, how long does it have to be off? And then if it is the defensive player who knocks it off, and in this case, Bergeron was an accident, like then it makes a gray area with that as well. That's like, okay, well, what did he knock it off on purpose and this and that? So I don't know. Like, I'm not saying like I didn't like the goal, but had it not stood, I wouldn't have been that angry.
I'll be honest. I didn't think the goal was going to stand.
No, neither did I. Because I thought it was too long. I thought that the net coming off, it was too long before it went in. But
it almost didn't even feel right that should be a goal.
Yeah.
Like the more they kept showing the replays and the slow-mos and the close-up, I'm like, is this really a goal? And I get it because, you know, there were people after the game that were tweeting out the rule book, and even after the goal was scored, people were tweeting out the specific rule that you talked about, Lepore, where even if the net is off, if the puck crosses the line with the net off, you know, depending on who knocked it off, and in this case it was Bergeron, then the goal should technically stand. But it almost felt like, you know, and, you know, me and you are two guys that have played hockey our whole lives. It just felt like, really, like we're really going to count this a goal. And I get it based on the rule book. Okay. And again, great for the Leafs. It was a Leafs goal. We're Leaf fans. Fantastic. But it did feel like there was a lot of gray area there. And it perhaps could have been maybe a lot more of a 50-50 call as opposed to like, okay, this is a sure goal. And I guess that's why it did take a long time to actually determine that.
I was going to get to that because with how long it took, I was kind of confused. I'm like, why is this taking so long? Because for it to be like overturned, it has to be conclusive. So I'm like, why is this taking so long? But then with the length of the review, did it more have to do with the puck crossing the line or not?
I think so.
It may have, because they kept showing it. It was at Tavares' skate, and if it crossed the line, and it was close.
Yeah, because it was hard for us to see at home if that puck had actually crossed the red line.
Big time. Yeah.
So I don't know if, the situation room in Toronto had a much better look at that. I'm assuming they did, but it did take them a long time. So maybe they didn't have a great look at it either. Mm-hmm. And they kept zooming in, and it looked like it just barely crossed the goal line.
Barely.
Like, I still think that call could have gone either way, but hey, based on the rule, it's a goal. And as Leaf fans, I guess we'll take that.
Yeah. The Leafs actually were able to get one more big scoring chance before the period ended. It was Jason Spezza who fed Wayne Train again. Again, he's getting the chances, but Allmark was able to make a big save. So we're tied at 1 going into the second period. Early in the second, Spezza was stopped in close. And then Allmark on a Leafs power play made some big saves. The Leafs power play was very, very good in this game, snapping it around. And Allmark keeping his team tied at 1. But then on the second of 3 straight power plays, the Leafs received in this period, Marner fed JT back to Marner to Auston Matthews. It went off his skate. Allmark kicked it out. Matthews was able to backhand home the rebound. So the Leafs go up 2-1. And then it was on the next power play, a blast, another vintage goal from number 34 from Marner and Riley this time. So the Leafs up 3-1. And then going into the third. So this is interesting, and this is a talking point. So as I mentioned, the Leafs received 3 straight power plays in the second period, and they scored on the second of the 3, as well as the third of the 3. So here we go into the second period. Leafs up 3-1 after 2 power play goals. And 30 seconds into that third period, John Tavares took a penalty. I think it was called hooking. And someone posted, I actually didn't even see it or see the replay when it happened. But I don't know if you follow TikTok. Is it a TikTok Tomar?
Yeah,
is that his
Omar
name?
Omar on TikTok. I don't know what his exact handle is, but he's always tweeting out the GIFs.
He's awesome. And like he posted the penalty, and I saw it on Twitter, and it was like a hilariously bad call. Like, I think he just kind of moved his stick towards the player stick, and then the player lost his balance and fell for, I think it might have been Pasternak, but just a terrible call. And it was one of those things that we say on this show all the time, or at least I do anyway. I love hockey so much, but I hate the NHL. The call was just the most NHL thing ever, in the way that, like I said, the Leafs got 3 straight power plays, scored on 2 of them. So the next power play has to go to Boston. It just
God forbid the Leafs get another power play.
God forbid they just call the game as it is, as it stands. When a player commits a penalty gets called. But it's one of those things. I mean, you try to brush it off, and you just assume or hope that it'll come your way later in the season. But as I said, it was a terrible call, and hockey gods came to play, because as John Tavares came out of the penalty box, okay, go back and watch this goal. There's footage of this goal where the camera is on Tavares in the penalty box, and you see him jump out. This was, I call this a lumberjack goal. I don't know if I've ever seen a player in different positions of the ice work so hard as Tavares worked for this goal and score. He scored this ugly rebound goal, but whatever. He deserved it after all the effort he put in. So 4-1 Leafs, like, great goal from Tavares. He's been so good, man. He's been so good so far.
He's back. John Tavares.
Yeah, he looks great. And I remember you mentioned when we did our Team Canada prediction show that, like, he was really dialed in and really wants to be considered and make this team. I mean, so far he looks really good. Like, he's on the card for sure. But awesome, man. Awesome to see. The Bruins were able to get one back. It was a Pasternak one-timer, great pass from Marchand. The Leafs got caught offensively. They came back the other way, kind of made it like a 4-on-2. for the Bruins. Again, another transition goal for the Leafs, like something, I mean, I'm sure alarm bells are sounding. Those seem to be the goals that always get scored against us. Campbell had a huge third period. Surprise, surprise. He stopped both Smith and Coleman with some big saves to keep it at 4-2. And then it was Mitch Marner with the empty net to cap off his 4-point night, a goal and 3 helpers for Mitch. And I didn't notice at the time, but I noticed it watching the highlights. Tavares was the one who fed him, and he could have had the hat trick. So he could have taken the shot from the left, trying to get his hat trick, but no, he fed it over to Marner, who went around the defenseman and slid it in for an easy goal. The shot count finished 44-36, actually, in favor of the Bruins, but a lot of that had to do with the Bruins outshooting the Leafs 23-9 in the third period when they were down. And Money Puck had the Leafs winning this game again. Great week, man. 64% of the time based on the underlying numbers. Jack Campbell finishes the week. 3 games played, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. He allowed 3 goals on 95 shots. So bravo to Jack Campbell.
Unreal.
Hard not to love him, man. Hard not to love him.
Yeah, for people questioning whether Jack Campbell is a legit number 1 goalie, I think people just have to stop at this point. The one knock against him is that he actually hasn't had a full season as a number 1 goalie. Like, he hasn't had, like a 50 or 60 start season, like a typical upper echelon starter would have. Even going back to Freddie Anderson, there was a stretch when he joined the Leafs, his first 3 seasons. I went back and checked this. He played the most games of any goalie in the NHL over his first 3 seasons with the Leafs, over 60 games every year. So we haven't seen that yet from Jack Campbell, but man, oh man, you look at the numbers since he has been a Leaf, even just looking at Jack Campbell's career numbers. Like, I'm sick and tired of people online, and maybe I live in my own little universe because I'm on social media, and TikTok and Twitter and YouTube and all that stuff. But he's now played 96 games in the National Hockey League, Lepore. He has a .919 save percentage and a 2.41 goals against average.
Sure.
So what are we even talking about here? Again, first round pick. He has the pedigree. I know he was a late bloomer, didn't really get an opportunity until now, but he's a damn good goalie. Like, end of story. He's a good goalie. Now, whether he remains durable and stays healthy is another question. But this guy is a starter in the National Hockey League, and not just a starter. He's a very, very good goalie in the National Hockey League.
Oh, dude, there's an argument that he's been the Leafs' most viable player so far this season.
Yeah, it's
like,
it's
that's not a hot take.
It really is. And Lepore, I want to talk about John Tavares for a second, because I think he's the key to all of this, really. And what I mean by that is, I know Matthews and Marner are the 2 best players on the team. They're making a ton of money. They're scoring all the goals, producing all the points. But I think the real straw that stirs the drink is John Tavares, because when he's at his best, and right now, him and Marner lead the team in scoring. They both have 12 points in 12 games. When John Tavares is playing like this, and you have that luxury, having Matthews playing 22, 23 minutes a game as your number 1 center, and you go to John Tavares, who's putting up a point a game and playing how he's playing right now, it makes this team so incredibly dangerous. And it really is the number 1 strength of this team. And it's the reason they went out and spent $11 million a year on John Tavares, because they wanted to have 2 of the best centers in the league playing around 20 minutes a game and just dominating night in and night out. And now you can say John Tavares is not the player he was 3 or 4 years ago. But I said earlier this year, when we were talking about Team Canada, for the people out there that think that he has no chance of making the Canadian Olympic team, you're telling me you wouldn't want John Tavares on your 4th line if you're Team Canada? If he's going to keep up this pace and play the way that he's been playing the last couple of weeks, are you kidding me? I even went back. I looked at the stats, Lepore, among Canadian-born players over the last 3 seasons. So that's not even including this season.
You dug deep into this one, Bruno.
Oh, man. I went deep into this. 4th in goals among Canadian-born players over the last 3 seasons with 92 goals. 2nd in even strength goals and top 10 in points among Canadian-born players over the last 3 seasons, not including this season right now. So for people who think that, it's just Leaf fans saying John Tavares is going to make the Canadian Olympic team. Like, no, he is very much in play to make that team. And I think he's a man on a mission this year. And I'm loving what I'm seeing out of the captain right now.
Yeah, I find what people forget when they make their Team Canada lineups is you need guys who can play in different areas. Like, we kind of made fun of the chatter last year about like if Zach Hyman would be considered. And like, you'd love him on the 4th line. And that was the take. But let's say there's an injury to someone in the top 6. Canada versus USA gold medal game. You want Zach Hyman in your top 6. Whereas if you have a Tavares there, that type of player, that type of talent, you can have him on the 3rd or 4th line. And then if there is an injury or if something happens, you can insert him with the big boys at the top and he'll be fine. And not that like Zach Hyman wouldn't be fine, but I think people know the point I'm trying to make here, where Tavares wouldn't look out of place at all in any top 6 with any players. So as you mentioned, Bruno, he's looked great, and it's good to see, especially how his season ended last year. And maybe it's got something to do with it, man. I mean, he was robbed of a playoff run with a team that had a good chance to go deep. So I'm sure he was motivated this offseason. Like, he just looks faster. Like, not that he's ever been like super fleet of foot, or even now that he looks like an absolute blazer, but just a little bit like, I don't want to say like he was skating with something on his back before. And I know I was reading stuff that he apparently had issues with his back and he kind of had to change his skating style a little bit. That's where Barba Underhill comes in. But he's looked good, man. He's looked fresh. Fresh is the word I would use to describe how his season has started. And it's good to see, man. It's good to see, because everyone's very grateful to have Tavares on the Leafs. And it's funny how personalities play in. Like you mentioned, like Matthews' demeanor and Marner's demeanor. It's easy to shit on those guys. Like the media for the media, it's a piece of cake just to shit on them because they're young, a little flamboyant. Like they can come off as arrogant, because I mean they probably are. But with Tavares, you don't necessarily hear it as often. And I think it's because at the end of the day, people just really like him. They like him. Like, he never says the wrong thing. You never have to question anything. There's never been anything off the ice. He's a husband. He's a father. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff. So I just find like
says all the right things.
Yeah. Like, and it is funny. Like this year, like I always kind of had that internal debate in my brain of like whether or not, and not that I had a problem with Tavares being named captain, but like, should it have been Matthews? You know what I mean? I know all that stuff happened in Arizona, but early in this year, like even going through that losing streak, I was like, no, John Tavares is the captain. Like John Tavares, like I mentioned, like that lumberjack goal, that's the type of goal I want to see from the guy who's my captain. And it's awesome, man. Like you said, all positives so far from JT. Even during the losing streak, he looked good. Like you didn't hear anyone shitting on John Tavares about his effort or, you know, him not bringing enough. It's awesome, man. It's good stuff.
He's playing well. And I think another big thing with him is just his timing, because like you said, he looks like he is skating better this year, but he's nowhere near the skater that the other members of the Leafs core 4 are. So John Tavares, he's more of a timing, a rhythm guy, being in the right spot, scoring those goals in tight. And it just seems like everything is going well for him right now. And it's so great to see, considering the injury that he dealt with in the playoffs against the Montreal Canadiens. So good for John Tavares, and Leafs Nation is extremely happy that he's playing the way he's playing right now. Lepore.
I'll throw it out there too. Not to get too deep in it, but like how good has Kerfoot looked on that line?
He's looked good.
They found a place, man.
He's flying out there, because when Kerfoot came in the Kadri trade, he was supposed to be the third center.
Yeah.
And you were supposed to have a top 3 center trio of Matthews, Tavares, and Kerfoot. Now, because the Leafs' depth has been a little bit decimated over the years because of cap casualties and things like that, Kerfoot has now had to slide into a top 6 role. But I think he's looked really good on that line with Tavares and Marner. He skates really well. He's good in the corners. He makes plays. And again, he's not going to put up a crazy amount of points or anything like that, but I think he's been a real positive just in terms of generating offense I think he's done a great job.
I'm sure some people are screaming, well, it's not that hard playing with John Tavares and Mitch Marner, but Kerfoot's doing it. So deal with it.
Exactly. He's doing a good job. Is there anything else Leafs wise you want to get off your chest, Lepore?
No, let's do it. Let's move on to other teams we know and love.
Let's do it. It's been a while since we've talked about some of the other Canadian teams, but I want to get into it a little bit here.
And before we start, Bruno, let's just say, comment down below, everyone. Can't wait.
This is going to be real spicy.
These are fun.
I hope you stay tuned for this next segment. Let's start things off, Lepore, with the two worst teams in the Eastern Conference.
Oof.
It is not looking good right now for the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens. 15th and 16th, respectively, in the Eastern Conference. Both teams have looked bad this season, especially Montreal. And I get it. Montreal doesn't have Carey Price and Shea Weber and all the changes in the offseason and blah, 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 blah. I hear Habs fans telling me all the time, giving me all these excuses about why they suck this year. But it's been a disaster for both of these teams. So, Lepore, I'm going to pose this question to you first. Which team would you rather be moving forward in the short term and the long term, for that matter?
God.
The Montreal Canadiens or the Ottawa Senators?
Okay. That's a tough one, Bruno. But okay, we'll start with the short term and then we'll get into discussion, the two of us, about like the long term. The long term's loaded. But in the short term, I would have to go with my hometown Ottawa Senators. And the reason why I say that is because had you shown me these records, had you shown me the Eastern Conference standings a few weeks ago for today's date, I'd ask myself, what would be more shocking and what would be more disappointing? And I think for Montreal, after being the team that went all the way to the Stanley Cup final and just being in the market they're in and the expectations, I think that's the one that would have been more disappointing. I think that's the one that would have been more shocking. At the end of the day, the Sens this year, and who knows, like they may turn it around. But if you told Sens fans that they were going to get another high draft pick this year, like, you know, their kids were going to look okay, have some further development, and then get another high draft pick, I don't think they'd be that bothered by that. I really don't. Where if you look at Montreal, and I'm sure they'd be happy to get a high draft pick, but there would be some like shock there, like, whoa, like that's not what we expected.
And just to chime in, the Habs fans out there that are saying, you know, tank for Shane Wright and we're going to get the number one pick. None of you were expecting Montreal to be this bad. So don't sit there and lie to yourself and lie to other people saying that, oh, we knew this was going to happen. We knew this team was going to look this bad. You are lying.
I haven't seen any of that. I haven't seen any of that.
You thought they were going to be this bad to start.
Those season exist. I haven't seen any of that. People saying, oh, we knew it. This was the plan.
Oh, I see it all over social media, Lepore. I'm everywhere. And I see it from these Habs fans, you know, making all the excuses. No Philip Deneau, again, no Price, no Weber, like all these other changes. I don't want to hear it. I really don't want to hear it. Like no one expected the Habs to be this bad.
Should they be rattled about Caulfield getting sent down?
Oh God.
Oof.
What a disaster. Cole Caulfield was.
Is it a disaster though? Like that's the thing. It's like, do we get too like excited for these young kids? And it's like, we put too much of a big deal. Like he's got to spend some time in the minors. Because on the flip side, like I'll say, and this is a good discussion for the two teams, Stützle. If I remember correctly, he's got like 8 goals in his last 56 games. And the kid, it's funny because you watch him and you see the talent. Like it's crazy. Like when he's got the puck, his head's up on the power play, it looks amazing. He's just not producing. So would he be better served as well in the AHL? And that might come off as a hot take, especially in Ottawa, how much people love him. And I love him. I think he's a great player, but the numbers are the numbers. Like he's not scoring. And if anyone argued with me, and I'm not saying 100% that he should be put in the AHL, I'm just kind of throwing that idea out there. He has not scored a goal yet in the National Hockey League this year. If you sent him down to Belleville, I think it's fair to say that he wouldn't absolutely dominate. Like he'd obviously be a very good player and he would stand out, but it wouldn't be like bonkers domination where he doesn't belong. And maybe I'm wrong about that one. Maybe it would be. And just right now in the NHL, the puck's not going in for him. And we talk about advanced stats all the time, and we're sure they'll even out for Stützle. But just in comparison to the Caulfield thing, like you mentioned it being a disaster. So carry on. Like, let's hear why you think it's such a bad look for the Montreal Canadiens.
So the reason I say that is, first of all, going back to the playoffs and seeing how good he was during that playoff run for the Habs. He scored a lot of big goals, and it wasn't even just his ability to score goals in timely moments. It was just his ability to generate offense consistently. Him and Nick Suzuki, game in and game out, didn't matter who they were playing. It seemed like those two were the most dangerous players on the ice for the Montreal Canadiens. It was not Tyler Toffoli or Brendan Gallagher or Philip Deneau. And I know Philip Deneau is obviously more of a defensive two-way center, but it was those two guys that were generating all the offense. And then heading into the season, Caulfield and Trevor Zegras on the Anaheim Ducks were the two betting favorites to win the Calder Trophy.
There you go. Okay.
They were the two betting favorites to win the Calder Trophy. I think Zegras, I want to say Zegras was number one and Caulfield was number two, but their odds were very, very close. So to see Caulfield after less than 10 games, or was it right at the 10-game mark, for him to get sent down to the Laval Rocket, just a brutal look for a team. Again, I think we all knew that team was going to take a step back to a certain degree. Like I did not think that they would be this bad. No one did, like I said. But I thought that they would at best be fighting for a wild card spot. But to see them just completely out of it, and quite frankly, to see them really with almost no chance at this point to make the playoffs. I know we're still early in the season, but I'm pretty much ready to put the fork in this team to make the playoffs at this point, considering how good the Eastern Conference is and how good the Atlantic Division is specifically. I mean, how on earth does this team even fight back to compete for a playoff spot at this point? They're dead last in the conference, and they just look bad.
Yeah. See, and like, again, to like the question of like, what team would you rather be? Again, like I come back to Ottawa because like we saw from them last year, they had an amazing second half of the season and they really turned it on. So I'm not saying like that will happen for sure, but like you can kind of see it. Like they're a young team. It might happen. Things might snap into place. So for sure in the short term, I think we both agree we'd rather be the Ottawa Senators. In the long term, is it that much of a debate, or like how we looking at this one?
So I do agree. In the short term, I'd rather be the Senators because I just think that they're a better team. And maybe things will change for Montreal when Carey Price comes back, and they're going to call up Caulfield again at some point. I don't think he's going to spend the entire rest of the season in the AHL. But my issue with the Senators is, and this is even going back to last season, where we responded to comments from Mark Mathot, former Senators defenseman, who said that in 2 to 3 years, the Senators were going to be a better team than the Leafs. And at the time,
and not even close, Bruno.
Exactly. He also added it, and it won't even be
close. Yeah.
And just looking at the Ottawa Senators, I mean, how could you even make a comment like that? We are now on year 4 of the Senators rebuild, and they have not even come close to sniffing the playoffs. I don't want to always bring everything back to the Leafs, but for those listening, do you realize that the Toronto Maple Leafs, for those Senators fans listening, the Toronto Maple Leafs made the playoffs in year 1 of the rebuild when Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Connor Brown, Hyman, these guys were all rookies. The Leafs made the playoffs in year 1, and they have now made the playoffs 5 consecutive seasons. The Ottawa Senators are now in, is it year 5 of Thomas Chabot? He's already signed his contract. Stützle's second year in the league. Year 4 of Brady Tkachuk, who just signed his deal.
Year 3 for Norris. Yeah.
Year 3 for Josh Norris. And this team is still not even close to sniffing the playoffs. So for those Senators fans out there, and again, I like the Senators. I like the players they have. I think they're headed in the right direction. But at some point, Lepore, we have to see this team compete for a playoff spot. I'm not saying, compete to win the division. Compete as a friggin' wild card at some point. Yeah. Show us that you've taken the next step. And right now, just looking at the standings and looking at some of the numbers, this team isn't there yet. Simple as that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, a lot of sense talk here in Ottawa. what I kind of mentally set is like what should be a goal for the Sens this year was 500, like get 82 points. So I thought like that'd be like, okay, you guys win 500, you're in the 80s, like that's great. The thing is with Ottawa, I think long-term as well, I'd rather be the Sens. And like, I'll step back on that when I get to a later point. Like I look at the Sens lineup. Okay. Thomas Chabot is a premier defenseman. They have him locked in. Tkachuk is a great piece. He's now the face of the franchise, being the captain. Stützle, as much as he's had a slow start to the season and maybe even a slow start to his career from a statistics standpoint, we know the talent's there. Josh Norris, I think, is a great player. So the Sens
too. I like.
I was gonna say that Batherson deal. I think that's like low key gonna be like a steal deal for the Ottawa Senators. Like that kid's real. I've liked that kid since junior. Very, very good player. So there's a lot of you can fire out a lot of positives with regard to like what is rising for the Ottawa Senators. But I will say, and it comes back to the discussion of like rebuilds and how to do it. It's like we've said it before on the show, like everyone thinks just because you rebuild and you stockpile draft picks that like you're going to be good. It's like, no, it's still hard to do. You can't sign guys for too much and you have to be calculated, and there's free agency guys you bring in. It's loaded. It's hard to do. It's hard to be a good team in the National Hockey League. So I do feel for the Senators that they are rising together, like all these young kids, and they're going in the right direction. But I think their next move or two, are their next, I'll say the next trade they make, but like I'm saying, whether it's a free agent signing or a deal they make, like they've talked about their D, they've had problems in the back end. If they should trade a forward for a defenseman, these are important. Like these are really and truly important because they're getting to that point where you mentioned like the periods of these guys' career they're in, where like, hey, Chabot is signed, he's locked in, he makes $8 million. Like Brady Tkachuk makes over $8 million. They have like guys like Zaitsev and Colin White and Batherson making like real money. Matt Murray, like 6.25, 2 more years after this. So like they have money locked in. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying there's got to be some critical maneuvering by Dorion with this team, because like one mistake, I think it's like teetering for them. I really do. And again, there's a lot of this team that I like. There's a ton of the Ottawa Senators that I really like. I just think it's a very, very delicate situation.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said about the Senators. I am more bullish on them moving forward, just looking at the rosters of both teams, Senators and Habs. I just think the Senators have not only more talent, but more players that I think could continue to get better long-term,
like
as opposed to
skill.
the Montreal Canadiens right now.
Yeah.
I think that's what separates those two teams. So I think we can both agree then, Lepore, that both in the short term and the long term, that we would take the Ottawa Senators.
We would.
All right. So again, leave your comments
down below, Montreal.
If you disagree with us or if you agree with us. I'd love to hear the opinions of both Senators and Habs fans. Lepore, before we end this podcast, we have to talk about 2 other Canadian teams.
Oh, keep it going, Bruno.
And they're on the opposite end of the spectrum.
They are.
The Edmonton Oilers and Calgary Flames. First and second in the Western Conference right now.
Whew, it's the 80s all over again, man.
Both teams have looked great. We have been on the record as, not liking the Daryl Sutter hire and being very...
Yeah.
Like we were concerned for the Calgary Flames moving forward.
Mildly.
And I think a lot of people know how I feel specifically about the Edmonton Oilers. I've been on the record as just not believing in this team over the last few seasons. But let's start the conversation here, Lepore, with which team do you believe in more?
Oh.
Which team do you believe in more this season? Do you want to start things off, or would you like me to?
Why not? I'll start things off.
Go for it.
Okay, because I think I know what, based on your track record, Bruno, with these teams, I think I know which direction you're gonna go. I will say believe in more. So my assumption is that by that you mean which team would I bet on to make a playoff run?
Yeah,
like
this
actually
year,
do.
let's just talk about this year.
Oh yeah, we're just doing this year.
Which team do you believe in more to go further in the playoffs? Because I think at this point we can both agree that these teams should easily make the playoffs, especially in that Pacific Division. So which team do you believe in more to make a deeper run in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Okay, so if I looked at the two lineups and I compared the two lineups and I tried to circle as many players as possible who I really liked, I think there would be more players on the side of the Calgary Flames. I mean, Kachuk, Mangiapane, Lindholm, you keep going. I mean, they got Markstrom and Nets.
Johnny
Solid
Gaudreau.
team. Yeah, Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan. I mean, we were saying last year on the show that we were shocked by their regular season. Like we didn't expect them to not have, everyone or most people expected them to be in the playoffs, and things didn't go well for them. They have a lot of pieces, a lot of good young pieces. They seem to be more dialed in now to Sutter's system. But I will say, Bruno, that I more believe in the Edmonton Oilers. And I often say on this show that I hate to be overly simplistic, but it's a 2-word answer: Connor McDavid. He's the best player in the world. And I think it goes even further. The guy is a freaking alien. He doesn't make sense. The numbers he's putting up, the plays he's making, the attention he's grabbing is incredible. And I have a tough time betting against Connor McDavid right now. I really do. It's just kind of like the history of the National Hockey League. The star players, the best players have had playoff success. There's very few who never really had deep runs in the playoffs, or even won the Stanley Cup for that matter. Like people always bring up the list of, best players ever to not have won the Stanley Cup. The list isn't that strong. I mean, like you see like Marcel Dion and like Sittler and those guys, but I mean, we're talking here, we're getting like kind of down the list. It's like the greatest players of all time. And even if they are like on that top list, like it's one or two of them. It's not like there's all these numbers of like these elite players who haven't won cups. So at this point right now, I will say I have more faith in the Edmonton Oilers. And also because the Edmonton Oilers are, I'm trying to find a better way to word this than like a very regular season team. So I think in a weak Western Conference, and it is a really weak Western Conference, I think they're going to beat up on a lot of teams and they're going to put together a heck of a record. I mean, they have so far anyway, and there's no reason they shouldn't keep going. Maybe not at the pace it currently is, but I think it'll keep going. So they're going to get better seeding. So, I mean, you see the Calgary, let's say, like we talked before about the division, if the Flames end up with, say, Vegas, a healthy Vegas team in the first round, that could be dangerous. Whereas if the Oilers, they could be the top team in the Western Conference, maybe like who do they get? So long story short, I have more faith in the Edmonton Oilers than the Calgary Flames.
That's totally fair, Lepore. And I do agree with you when it comes to Connor McDavid and even Leon Draisaitl. They're cyborgs at this point. It is absolutely absurd. McDavid and Draisaitl are both on pace for over 180 points.
Yeah, I saw
that. Just like process
Step
that
back
for a second.
Yeah.
They're on pace for 180 plus points each. I haven't checked the era adjusted seasons, but I would believe that these are probably they're on pace to have two of the greatest era adjusted seasons in NHL history.
It's gotta be.
And last year, seeing McDavid put up 104 points in 56 games, like that was outrageous. But he's been even better this season. How is that even possible? And Draisaitl, same thing. They are just ridiculous. But I still have concerns when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers. And number one is I still don't think they're that good defensively. And just looking at some of the numbers right now, rank 28th in the National Hockey League in shots against per game. They are giving up 33.9 shots per game. You go look at their Corsi numbers. So Corsi for percentage, which basically shows the percentage of shot attempts a team is getting per game. Right now, the Minnesota Wild are number one in the league at 55%. Calgary's number two at just under 55%. Then you have the Leafs, number 4 at 54%. The Edmonton Oilers are 16th in the NHL, controlling just 50% of the shot attempts. So they're still giving up shots. They're giving up scoring chances. as good as McDavid and Draisaitl have been, I still think that there have been issues with this team, specifically in keeping action out of their own end and not getting into track meets and things like that. And then you look at their power play, Lepore. It doesn't even make sense right now. The Oilers' power play is operating at 50%.
What?
50%.
Okay, I didn't know it was that high.
Right behind them is the St. Louis Blues at 32%.
Okay.
So like that obviously isn't going to continue. So as good as those guys have been, and I think Edmonton is going to just steamroll their way into the playoffs, I still need to see it because I saw this last season where this team was incredible offensively. McDavid had one of the greatest era-adjusted seasons of all time, and they got swept in the first round against the Winnipeg Jets.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like the Leafs, right? As good as the Leafs are in the regular season, I still need to see them win a playoff series. I don't care if Matthews and Marner both get 110 points and Matthews scores 60 goals. Sure, it's great. And Leafs Nation is going to love that. But until they actually prove that they can win a playoff series, none of it matters. And I view the Edmonton Oilers in the same light. Now, switching things over to the Calgary Flames and why I believe in them more, I love how they've essentially really bought into this Daryl Sutter system. We all know Daryl Sutter, one of the best defensive-minded coaches in the league. We've seen him do this in multiple stops. I'm on the record as someone who thought that he wouldn't be able to turn it around in Calgary, but this team looks good right now. Just looking at the numbers, right now, Calgary, defensively, second in the league, allowing just 2 goals a game. So that's very Daryl Sutter-like. But offensively, they've also been really good. 5th in the league in goals per game. The power play, Calgary, tied for 6th in the league at over 26%. The penalty kill has also been good. Top 8 in the league. Their possession numbers, as I alluded to, looking at their Corsi numbers, Calgary, 2nd in the league, controlling 54% of the shot attempts per game. Or just overall for that matter. I like everything I'm seeing. Jacob Markstrom has been excellent. I just think this team across the board is a better all-around team than the Edmonton Oilers, and I think they're more built to win in the playoffs than the Edmonton Oilers are, as good as Draisaitl and McDavid have been. And those guys, they can essentially carry a house league team to the playoffs at this point. But that is why I believe in the Calgary Flames, because they've been great defensively. Offensively, they're getting contributions throughout the lineup. They're almost playing kind of like, it might seem crazy to say, kind of like those LA Kings teams that Daryl Sutter coached 7-8 years ago. And I'm not saying it's the same personnel and, like Johnny Gaudreau is an Anze Kopitar and there's no Drew Doughty on the Calgary Flames, but looking at the numbers and the way that they play, there are some similarities there. So I'm going to say I believe more in the Calgary Flames, and I think that they will be more successful in the playoffs than the Edmonton Oilers.
I love it when we disagree, Bruno.
Oh, it's the best when we disagree, Lepore. That's
again, everyone comment down below with whose opinion you agree with more and why.
I want to hear it from Oilers fans, from Flames fans, from Sens fans and Habs fans. Chime in on this conversation. We would love to hear your thoughts. But Lepore, before we wrap up the show, is there anything else you want to get off your chest, whether it's about the Leafs or any of these other teams that we've talked about?
No, it was a great show, man. It was a fun show talking about a 5-game winning streak, moving on to other Canadian teams. I'm thoroughly satisfied with that. So hopefully the Leafs keep rolling. They have one more game on this homestand. I believe it's the Kings coming up. So hopefully they can make it 6 in a row. And can't wait to see it, man. Let's keep this momentum going in Leafland. Yeah,
the Leafs have 4 games coming up this week.
Okay.
They're at home against the Kings on November 8th, which is my birthday, Michael Lepore. So hopefully,
let's go.
Hopefully
you're sitting
Leafs,
against the glass, right, for your birthday?
Of course, Lepore. The GFP podcast is always sitting right up against the glass. That's
corporate
how
seats.
We roll.
Yeah.
But so the Leafs hopefully will get a win on my birthday on November 8th. And then November 10th, they're on the road against the Flyers. On Friday, they return home to face the Calgary Flames. That should be a really good game. And then they close out the week on the road against the Buffalo Sabres. So we'll see. We'll see how this week goes. There's a couple of tough games in there, and hopefully the Leafs can keep it rolling.
You mentioned before about like playing different teams, like not Canadian teams. I got just kind of like tingly with like LA. That's awesome. Like it's like exciting. Philadelphia. We're going on the road to Philadelphia. It's awesome, man. Exciting. Hockey's back. For real, hockey's back. I mean,
it's been way too long since things have felt this normal. And hopefully the Leafs can continue making things feel normal because they're a great regular season team and they're going to keep winning games. And that's what Leafs Nation loves to see. All right. That is going to do it for episode 40 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Once again, if you're a new listener and you enjoyed the show, it would be a big time help if you give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we would appreciate it so much if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.